Below 1,000 meters, the ocean goes dark. Not dim, not reduced. The kind of dark that has no gradations, where the last photon of sunlight has traveled as far as physics allows and stopped. Photosynthetically active radiation, the wavelengths that power every plant and phytoplankton in the sunlit ocean, disappears completely before this depth. It does not fade, it ends. The temperature at 1,000 meters settles near 4 degrees Celsius and holds there. The pressure has already climbed to 100 atmospheres. Every 10 additional meters of descent adds another atmosphere. At 2,000 meters, 2 kilometers straight down, the pressure exceeds 200 atmospheres. At that depth, the crushing force on any unprotected air cavity would destroy it in milliseconds. This zone has a name. Scientists call it the bathypelagic, the midnight zone. It runs from 1,000 meters to 4,000 meters, and it's the largest contiguous habitat on Earth by volume. Institutional estimates from the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History and Smithsonian Ocean consistently place the deep ocean at over 90 to 95% of all living space on the planet. The midnight zone is its core. It's populated by things that look like they were designed by a mind with no interest in familiarity. Giant squid, Architeuthis ducks, inhabit its upper ranges, filmed alive by NOAA Ocean Exploration at 759 meters in 2019. Anglerfish hang motionless in the dark, trailing bioluminescent lures from structures on their foreheads. Gulper eels move through the water column with jaws that can unhinge to engulf prey larger than their own bodies. Siphonophores, colonial-cnidarians that are technically a single organism, not a school, stretch to lengths beyond 40 meters. Dragonfish, cyclothone, things for which the English language didn't have names until deep-sea research created them. These animals are adapted to this place. They have evolved for its pressure, its cold, its dark. They can't leave it. The apex predator of the midnight zone isn't one of them. It breathes air. It's warm-blooded. Its brain is built on the same architecture as every mammalian brain that has ever walked on land. It comes down every night, takes what it finds, goes back up. The deepest ocean on Earth does not belong to the deep sea. It belongs to the sperm whale. Physeter macrocephalus is the largest toothed animal on Earth. Adult males reach 18 meters in length and up to 57 tons. The sperm whale carries the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived. Approximately 8 kilograms of neural tissue inside that enormous, blunt-ended forehead. It's a mammal descended from terrestrial ancestors who walked on land roughly 50 million years ago. It requires oxygen, produces milk for its young, maintains a core body temperature, and would drown if it couldn't surface. It makes the midnight zone a regular working environment anyway. Tagging studies establish the dive pattern with precision. Watwood and colleagues, synthesizing data from multiple tagged individuals and published in the Journal of Animal Ecology in 2006, found sperm whale foraging dives averaging 45 minutes of descent and bottom time, followed by approximately 9 minutes at the surface. The foraging depth range across those tagged animals, 400 to 1,200 meters, with some individuals pushing into the upper midnight zone on regular dives. The Natural History Museum in London describes the species as regularly diving between 1,000 and 2,000 meters. Multiple synthesis sources confirm documented dives in excess of 2,000 meters for some tagged individuals. NOAA's Southeast Fisheries Science Centre, in its ongoing Evaluating the Cumulative Impact of Multiple Stressors on Cetaceans project, has deployed digital acoustic recording tags, suction cup devices measuring depth, acceleration, ambient sound, and animal vocalization, directly onto sperm whales in the Gulf of Mexico aboard the research vessel Gordon Gunter.
Preliminary plots from these deployments show the characteristic pattern. Repeated deep foraging dives within a single 24-hour window, each descending hundreds of meters, each followed by a brief surface interval measured in minutes. These animals can remain submerged for over 2 hours, NOAA reports, emerging only briefly before diving again. This isn't seasonal behavior. It isn't opportunistic. The 45-minute average dive, 9-minute surface, 45-minute dive pattern means that a sperm whale spends the majority of its day below the surface, working, hunting, in the midnight zone or descending toward it. The question is how a 57-ton air-breathing mammal survives that environment at all. Pressure is the first problem. At 1,000 meters, 100 atmospheres of force compresses every air-filled space in a body. Human lungs would collapse. Sinuses would implode. The gas dissolved in blood would become lethal. The physics of descending with air in your body past a few hundred meters should be a death sentence. The sperm whale solves this problem by preemptively surrendering. As depth increases and pressure mounts, the whale's chest wall, highly compliant, with far fewer rigid cartilaginous rings than shallow diving cetaceans, allows the ribcage to compress. The lungs, which in sperm whales are specifically small relative to body size compared to shallow divers, collapse inward. The alveoli, the tiny air sacs where gas exchange between lungs and blood normally occurs, compress and cease functioning. Air is shunted from the collapsing alveoli into the rigid upper airways, the trachea and bronchi, where gas exchange can't happen. The consequence is decisive. With the alveoli shut down by compression, nitrogen can't dissolve into the bloodstream in dangerous quantities. No nitrogen dissolving into tissue means no nitrogen coming back out of tissue as the whale ascends. No nitrogen coming out of tissue means no decompression sickness. Research published in the Journal of Experimental Biology describes this mechanism, Scholander's model of alveolar collapse, as preventing pulmonary barotrauma specifically by allowing the lung and chest to reach very low volumes during deep dives. The chest is flexible enough to allow the collapse without injury to the tissue itself, and the rigid upper airways provide a buffer where gas can exist without triggering dangerous gas exchange. The exact depth at which full alveolar collapse occurs in sperm whales hasn't been directly measured in living, free-diving animals. It's derived from anatomical models and pressure calculations, but the mechanism is confirmed across the deep-diving cetacean literature. At depth, the whale effectively turns its own lungs off, removing the primary mechanism by which pressure kills an air breather. After the lungs shut down, the whale must rely entirely on what it carried into the dive. Oxygen storage in diving mammals is distributed across 3 systems: the lungs, the blood, and the muscle. For sperm whales, the lung contribution becomes negligible partway through the dive as the alveoli collapse. The blood and muscle carry the remainder of the animal through 45 to 90 minutes of deep hunting. The muscle contribution is extraordinary. Myoglobin is the protein responsible for oxygen storage in muscle tissue. In human skeletal muscle, myoglobin concentrations run approximately 8 grams per kilogram of muscle, enough to support the modest oxygen demands of a terrestrial mammal. In sperm whale muscle, the concentration is approximately 80 grams per kilogram, 10 times higher. The muscle tissue is so saturated with myoglobin that it appears nearly black when examined fresh, a color shift visible to the naked eye, unlike the red of terrestrial mammal muscle. This isn't a minor adaptation. Across the entire muscle mass of a 57-ton animal, the cumulative oxygen storage capacity dwarfs that of any comparably sized land mammal. The sperm whale essentially walks into each dive carrying a 10-fold upgrade to its onboard oxygen supply. Blood carries the larger portion of the total. Analysis of diving mammal oxygen stores confirms that blood accounts for approximately 64% of the sperm whale's total body oxygen reserve, the dominant fraction. The spleen plays a direct role in maximizing that fraction. When a dive begins, the spleen contracts, releasing stored red blood cells into circulation. Hematocrit, the proportion of blood volume occupied by oxygen-carrying red cells, rises at precisely the moment the animal needs it most. The diving reflex triggers this response automatically, alongside the cardiac changes that follow. In blue whales, the only large whale species whose heart has been directly recorded at depth using a biologer tag, a 2019 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by Jeremy Goldbogen and colleagues at Stanford and Cascadia Research documented the full cardiac signature for the first time. A suction cup ECG biologer attached to a single adult male blue whale off California recorded heart rate throughout diving and surface recovery. During dives, the heart rate typically dropped to 4 to 8 beats per minute. The minimum recorded in that single animal was 2 beats per minute. Surface recovery rate, 25 to 37 beats per minute. That measurement is from one blue whale. Sperm whale hearts have never been directly recorded at depth. The instrumentation required, a suction cup ECG biologer designed to remain attached through a 90-minute dive past 2,000 meters, hasn't produced confirmed sperm whale cardiac data. But all cetaceans exhibit the mammalian diving reflex, which includes cardiac suppression, and the physiological demands on a sperm whale at depth are comparable to or greater than those on a blue whale in shallower water. The principle is the same. The numbers are inferred, not measured directly. What isn't inferred is the outcome. A 57-ton mammal sustaining itself at extreme depth on stored oxygen, with a heart rate suppressed to a fraction of its surface value in complete darkness for up to 90 minutes. The midnight zone has other predators. The territorial claim depends on knowing who they are and where they stop. Begin with orcas. Orcinus orca is commonly described as the ocean's apex predator. In open water surface hunting, cooperative pack tactics and sheer intelligence, that description is defensible. At depth, it collapses entirely. A 2022 Frontiers in Marine Science study tagged eastern North Pacific offshore killer whales, the ecotype most associated with deep water prey and the most likely of any orca population to dive deep. Tagged whales produced median dive depths of 41 meters and 100 meters for 2 individuals. Maximum recorded dive depth in the study, 480 meters. North Atlantic orca data, compiled from multiple tagging programs, shows these animals spending 90% of their time at 40 meters or shallower. 480 meters is the orca's verified ceiling. The midnight zone begins at 1,000 meters. Orcas don't compete at this depth because they don't reach this depth. Great white sharks, Carcharodon carcharias, are gill-breathing fish, not air-breathing mammals, so they occupy a different ecological category in this argument. But even setting aside the air-breathing distinction, the deepest confirmed dive for a great white, documented by the Natural History Museum, was 980 meters. Core activity runs between 150 and 350 meters. Great white sharks don't penetrate the midnight zone. The 980-meter record barely grazes its boundary, and at that depth, the zone is only just beginning. Greenland sharks, Somniosus microcephalus, present a more complicated picture. They are gill-breathing, so again not competitors in the air-breathing category, but they are genuine deep-water animals. Survey data from Arctic waters, including baited camera work published in scientific reports, finds these animals concentrated between 450 and 800 meters, with presence documented across a broader range. Some informal reports place individuals at 2,200 meters, though the peer-reviewed literature caps confirmed survey ranges considerably shallower than that. They are slow-moving ambush predators and opportunistic scavengers, not the active midnight zone hunters the argument requires. And they don't breathe air. Elephant seals are the closest mammalian comparison. Northern elephant seals can reach depths exceeding 1,500 meters at their recorded maximum. Southern elephant seals have dives documented approaching 2,400 meters in some accounts. These are extraordinary numbers for an air breather. But the routine foraging depth for elephant seals, What they do on most dives day after day runs between 400 and 800 meters. Tagging work from the Earth Guide project at UCSD confirms elephant seals regularly diving to 400 to 800 meters for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. The 1,500 meter and 2,400 meter figures are exceptional excursions, not daily operations. The distinction between a maximum recorded depth and a routine hunting depth is the difference between a record and a territory. Elephant seals occasionally visit the midnight zone's upper boundary. Sperm whales routinely descend into it as part of their standard daily foraging pattern. The ocean doesn't belong to the animal that reached it once. There is one genuine contender. Cuvier's beaked whale, Xiphias cavirostris, is a mid-sized odontocete, typically around 2.5 tons, found in deep offshore waters across most of the world's oceans. It isn't well known. It's rarely seen at the surface. It's the most extraordinary diving mammal for which we have hard data. In 2014, a team led by Shaw and colleagues published a satellite tagging study in PLOS One that documented what 8 Cuvier's beaked whales off Southern California were actually doing. Over a 10-day period, the team collected 79 hours of depth data. Those 8 animals performed 1,142 deep dives. Group mean depth, 1,401 meters. Group mean duration, 67.4 minutes. The record dive from that study, 2,992 meters, 137.5 minutes. New mammalian records for both depth and dive duration at the time. A subsequent tagging study, results published in 2024, produced a Cuvier's dive lasting nearly 4 hours, 222 minutes, the longest confirmed mammalian dive on record. The 2,992-meter figure isn't a fluke. It's embedded in a dataset of over 1,100 dives, with a group mean approaching 1,400 meters. The Natural History Museum describes 2,000 meters as a more normal depth for Cuvier's beaked whale foraging. These animals echolocate actively during deep dives, confirmed by acoustic recordings at depth, making them direct competition hunters of midnight zone squid and fish, not passive scavengers. On the metrics of absolute depth and mean foraging depth, Cuvier's beaked whales go deeper than sperm whales. On the specific metric of maximum recorded depth, they hold the mammalian record. The claim that sperm whales own the midnight zone has to account for this seriously, because Cuvier's beaked whales aren't an edge case. The ownership argument survives because territorial claims aren't settled by who reached the deepest point once. They are settled by the scale of occupation. The global sperm whale population is approximately 840,000 individuals, confirmed through IUCN assessment and population modeling. For Cuvier's beaked whales, no confirmed global population estimate exists. NOAA's Western North Atlantic Stock Assessment gives a minimum count of 3,817 individuals for that single region. Global estimates are believed to run into the tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but the uncertainty itself is telling.
Sperm whales are sufficiently numerous and widespread that global population counts have been attempted and revised. Cuvier's beaked whales are rare enough that no reliable global estimate has been produced. Distribution matters as much as population. Sperm whales have near-global distribution, confirmed in every ocean basin from Arctic waters off Svalbard to Antarctic seas. A 2026 study published in Nature explicitly confirms near-global distribution for the species. Male sperm whales in particular migrate to high latitudes that Cuvier's beaked whales aren't consistently documented inhabiting. Cuviers are a deep offshore species found in many ocean basins, but not at the planetary coverage the sperm whale achieves. And then there is body mass. A 57-ton sperm whale visiting the midnight zone removes prey at an entirely different scale than a 2.5-ton beaked whale. The total biomass pressure that 840,000 sperm whales exert on midnight zone populations, repeated daily across every ocean basin, has no comparison in the Cuvier's beaked whale's footprint, regardless of that species' impressive individual diving credentials. Cuvier's beaked whale goes deeper. It forages deeper on average. It's a genuine bathypelagic predator, and the honest version of the ownership argument acknowledges this directly. But the sperm whale owns the midnight zone by coverage, by the density, frequency, and planetary scale of its presence. The beaked whale is a specialist operating in select, deep offshore tracts. The sperm whale is the landlord who is everywhere, all the time, at numbers no other deep air breather can approach. Now consider what the whale brings with it when it arrives. The midnight zone has no sunlight. Bioluminescence is the primary light source, the cold flashes of organisms using biochemical reactions to signal, lure, warn. These are passive light sources. They illuminate only when their producers choose to generate them and for specific purposes. Vision in the midnight zone is almost useless for active hunting at any meaningful range. Most resident predators have evolved accordingly. Ambush tactics, chemoreception, passive motion sensing, extreme patience. The sperm whale's head is one of the largest and most specialized acoustic structures in the animal kingdom. The upper forehead is dominated by the spermaceti organ, a massive case of waxy oil, up to a third of the whale's total body length, filling most of the forehead's volume. Below it runs the junk, layered fat and connective tissue. Sound is produced through phonic lips deep in the nasal passage, called the museau de singe, in older anatomical literature, the monkey's lips, and the click passes forward through the spermaceti organ, reflects off a frontal sac at the back of the head, then travels through the junk and exits the head as a focused, directional beam. The Cambridge paper on the nose of the sperm whale describes this as a complex three-dimensional acoustic amplification and beam-forming system. The output is the loudest biological sound on Earth. In 2003, Bertel Merle and colleagues published measurements in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America, recording on-axis sperm whale clicks as essentially monopulsed, with source levels up to 236 decibels, re 1 micropascal, root mean square, at the source. The paper described these as by far the loudest sounds recorded from any biological source at the time of publication. Centroid frequencies of 15 kHz, a composite directionality index of 27 decibels, click durations of 100 microseconds. An earlier 2000 study by the same team recorded source levels up to 223 decibels. A 2026 study on male sperm whale slow clicks confirmed source levels above 200 decibels at origin. The 230 decibel figure widely cited across the literature represents a reasonable summary of these peak source level measurements, taken at the animal before any attenuation through water. What matters in the midnight zone isn't the number, it's the function. The sperm whale is the only animal at this depth carrying active sonar. Every other predator at 1,000 to 2,000 meters is operating reactively, waiting for something to come close enough to detect, respond to, ambush. The sperm whale is projecting energy into the water column, interpreting the returning echoes and navigating directly toward prey it is located acoustically. The echolocation system operates in two modes. During descent, the whale produces slow, regularly spaced clicks, ranging pulses that map the water ahead. As it approaches a target, the click interval shortens dramatically into a rapid-fire sequence called a creak or buzz, the acoustic signature of a closing approach. Research published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B by Miller, Johnson and Tyack confirmed directly, using data loggers and acoustic recording tags deployed on sperm whales, that creak production corresponds to prey capture attempts. The buzz precedes the strike. Tagging studies have recorded tagged sperm whales generating bursts of acceleration during deep dives, active pursuit maneuvers at depth, the animal closing on prey it has already located acoustically before the strike. Active pursuit. Active sonar. In a zone where everything else hunts passively. The whale isn't adapting to the midnight zone's conditions. It's refusing to. Everything in its hunting strategy is the opposite of what the environment demands of its permanent residence. It brings light, acoustic light, into the darkness and uses it as a weapon. The creatures that live in the midnight zone permanently have no reciprocal capability. Giant squid, Architeuthis dux, are among the most famous residents of the deep. Their exact depth range remains imprecisely established because they are almost never observed alive in their natural habitat. The Australian Museum places their capture depth at 400 to 800 meters. Animal Diversity Web positions them primarily in the mesopelagic, at depths approaching 1,000 meters. NOAA Ocean Exploration filmed one alive at 759 meters in the Gulf of Mexico in 2019. Research on Architeuthis biology suggests the species does not perform marked vertical migrations. Its buoyancy mechanism, based on ammonium chloride solution in body tissues, isn't suited to rapid movement across large depth ranges. They live at depth. They remain at depth. Sperm whale stomachs document the predation with specificity. The 1989 NOAA technical report by Fiskus, Rice, and Woolman examined cephalopod remains from sperm whale stomachs taken off Central California, documenting predation across multiple squid species from multiple families. Kawakami's 1972 examination of 8 sperm whales taken off Joban in the northwestern Pacific found all stomachs containing only squid. Histiotuthis dufleini and Moroteuthis robusta were the dominant species in that study area. Circular sucker scars on sperm whale skin, confirmed from multiple ocean basins, are the physical record of encounters with large squid, preserved on the predator's body after ascent. The predation relationship is asymmetrical at the most fundamental level. Deep-sea organisms can't survive ascent to surface pressure. Research on pressure tolerance in bathypelagic species consistently shows that animals adapted to 100 or more atmospheres can't tolerate the transition to atmospheric pressure. This isn't a behavioral limitation, it's a physiological one. The hyperbaric trap, a specialized device used in deep-sea research specifically to capture organisms at depth pressure and maintain them under pressure during retrieval, exists because these animals die if brought up normally. The squid is adapted to the midnight zone. It's constrained by it. The whale descends into the squid's permanent home, hunts it, and returns to a world the squid can't follow it into. This asymmetry of access is the definition of territorial ownership, stated in biological terms. The owner isn't the one who lives there. The owner is the one who comes and goes as it pleases, while the residents can't reverse the transaction. The scale of the territory claimed makes the argument concrete. 840,000 sperm whales distributed across every ocean basin, making regular foraging dives into the midnight zone daily. The average dive cycle, 45 minutes descent and hunting, 9 minutes surface interval, dive again, means these animals are below the surface for most of their lives. The Watwood 2006 synthesis establishes this pattern from multiple tagged individuals. NOAA Southeast Fisheries Science Center's current work confirms it continues in active populations today. At this moment, sperm whales are descending through the darkness in the North Atlantic, the South Pacific, the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Norway at 69 degrees north, off the coast of Chile, in waters approaching the Antarctic convergence. Males, which migrate to the highest latitudes of any sperm whale population, range across geographic areas no other deep-diving mammal covers at comparable density. The global sperm whale population isn't concentrated in one ocean. It's distributed across all of them. The midnight zone, the 1,000 to 4,000 meter layer that constitutes the dominant volume of Earth's biosphere, has one air-breathing predator that visits it at planetary scale, daily, across 800,000 individuals. No other mammal comes close to this coverage, not on depth, not on number, not on geographic range. The Smithsonian describes the deep sea as accounting for over 95% of Earth's living space. The Deep Sea Conservation Coalition calls it the largest habitat on Earth. That habitat, all of it, in every ocean, is where the sperm whale hunts.
The deep sea is supposed to be the most alien environment on Earth, and it earns that. The anglerfish has evolved a lure from its own skull. The siphonophore is a 40-meter colony that functions as a single animal. The gulper eel can swallow prey larger than itself. These are creatures shaped by 500 million years of evolution in an environment that has never changed. Perpetual dark, perpetual cold, perpetual pressure. Everything about them says, built here, for here, incapable of anywhere else. The apex predator of this world is none of those things. It's warm-blooded, it breathes air. Its brain, the largest brain in the history of vertebrate life, runs the same fundamental architecture as every mammalian brain that has ever existed, including the one reading this narration. Its ancestors walked on land. Its lineage traces back to a terrestrial mammal, somewhere around 50 million years ago, that entered the water and never returned. In the context of Earth's evolutionary history, the sperm whale is recent. In the context of the midnight zone, it's an outsider, and it owns the place. It descends past 1,000 meters with its lungs collapsed under the pressure. Its heart rate drops to a fraction of its surface rate. Its muscle tissue, black with 10 times the myoglobin concentration of any land mammal, releases stored oxygen over 45 to 90 minutes of active hunting. Its sonar, the loudest biological sound ever recorded, maps the darkness ahead. It hunts, it takes, it ascends. The squid bears the scars. The whale surfaces in a world the squid will never see. The largest habitat on Earth isn't owned by a fish, not by a squid, not by a shark. It's owned by a mammal that has to breathe air, a mammal that colonized the deepest, darkest, most hostile territory on the planet, not by adapting to its conditions, but by overriding them through sheer physiological force. The midnight zone belongs to the sperm whale. It comes down every night. Nothing down there can stop it. Subscribe for more stories like this.